And I'm just happy to have Dolores with us today from Ghana. She's in West Africa, where she lives and works, and so we're having a little bit of care and feeding of our internet connection. Dolores, if you want to try to show your face, and then you can take yourself off video, but just at least initially introducing yourself and the work you're doing, and then I'm going to let you just go right into your dissertation research because I think it's, of course, it's all connected. So just happy to have you today and happy to see your
Hi.
smiling face. And so I'm going to, Dolores, let you introduce yourself and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, and welcome everybody. Good to see you all. Some of you once again. My name is Dolores Opon, as you on the screen, if you can see it. I live in Ghana, Accra, in the capital, West Africa. I did my PhD at Stable, and I completed in 2017, and I came back to Ghana in November 2017. I actually did not want to see my dissertation research when I got back. I just chucked it somewhere and decided to just take it easy. I actually was plagued with some ill health as well. I don't know if it was the stress of doing my PhD and traveling up and down. So for most of last year, I just did little bits of things and actually got into working more full time this year. As much as I don't have too many things to say after the PhD, I do have some interesting things to say. So thank you, and welcome everybody once again.
And Dolores, make sure you've got your microphone clearly there.
Okay.
We're kind of battling that as well. So.
Okay, if you don't hear me, I don't know where you lost me.
No, we can. I just want to make sure your presentation was clear as it could be.
All right. Okay. I'm going to hold on to it. So I'm going to start now. Yep. If there are any questions for me before I start, I'll be happy to take them.
I think we're good to go.
Okay. Thank you. So welcome to my presentation once again. And it's on my research, my dissertation research, developing a community corporate partnership model of corporate social responsibility for developing countries. A mouthful. I actually got into doing this research, looking at an alternative model for CSR, corporate social responsibility, because of issues that have gone on in Ghana, have plagued Ghana because of what basically the multinational corporations come into the country to do and how it affects the people. And so I'm going to give you a picture story. Let the pictures tell their own story about what has been going on and why I picked it up. So what you are seeing here is the land of Ghana. The fauna is at the back, the forest, and at the top left corner are some monkeys, one of the wildlife that lives in the forest. And on the right-hand corner, you see there's a rope, there's a walkway, the canopy walkway that goes around about 7 huge trees into the rainforest. So this forest is called Kaku Forest. It's on the southern part of Ghana, and it has hundreds of species of butterflies and monkeys and different wildlife. And then below it, we have the sea on the west coast of Ghana. Some people swimming in there. And we actually have whales, the bottom left, we have whales in the water. And this part of Ghana is has a lot of oil. So we have several multinational corporations drilling oil there. And there are times when, of course, we've had oil spills, which have caused the beauty of that. And then we have some of the fishermen complaining they're not allowed to go close to the rigs hitherto where they used to fish for their livelihood. So that's the flora there, yes. And then the inland, we have a lake in there, up there, and below, instead of a bird, the birds that we have in Ghana. One of them, we have several hundreds of species. And then some of the animals that you have in our forest, the antelope, the elephants, the warthog, the snake, the lion, the deer. So these are some of the sites of Ghana. And we are still looking at the sites of Ghana. Up there is a settlement that is within the forest part of Ghana. And then below them are the people who dwell in the forest. You see the women on the bottom right, my left, coming from their farm, smile. And on the right is a man and his wife who are also coming from the farm with some foodstuffs. So usually the farms serve as economic and daily living livelihood for the people. So it's a whole holistic life for them, the farm and the fishing. Now if you look again, the same lands I showed you, the forest, if you look at the top, this is what has happened to one of the forests that we have. The top one, it has been turned into a mine, a gold mine. And this is an actual picture of what is going on there. And the forest is not there. So all those people you saw coming from those farms, all those huts or structures you saw as their building, their dwelling places, have been replaced by this. And below it is an actual cyanide poisoning of an area, a full forest area that this house had 10,000 farmers. And this Newmont Mining is operating there now. So they had to displace the 10,000 farmers. They gave them some sort of hut and a bit of money to replace their lifelong and their ancestral homes. And a few times, if you see what it is, cyanide, so they use the cyanide to wash the gold. It polluted all their water bodies. They didn't have any water to drink. And so they were really in big trouble. And this has happened more than once. And this is only a microcosm of only one of the situations, or two of the situations now that I'm showing here, that happens when it comes to these multinationals that operate in Ghana. And they take away the farm. They may be subsistence, meaning that they're just farming maybe a few acres because they farm by hand with their families. So they look like the farmers. It's just a small piece of land. You can give that piece some money to replace it, and then you go somewhere else and go and start another living. But these farms are actually linked to the heritage of the people, and they've been handed down from generation to generation. And we actually still have now people fight and die because of this piece of land. But when these multinationals come, they just go and see the government. They decide, okay, we are taking on so many acres. We give these people a little bit of money, go and resettle, and it should be okay. And these are people who have never run businesses, who have never held the sums of money that they've been given, who don't even know the value of the lands they have. But usually they also have tree crops and crops that help them to live. And that is where they feed from, and they also get some economic livelihood from. And so when they have those monies, they don't know how to use it. The monies do not equate to what the value of what they have, and of course they dissipate it. So this has been going on for a while. And so what we have had is that we have people. So the ladies in red with the hands on the head. When somebody puts his hand on his head and starts wailing, it means the person is in serious pain. And when they wear red, I don't know how to put it in English. It's not that they are angry or frustrated, but it's like they are desperate. They are upset. There's so many words that describe the red and the way the lady has put her hands on her head to show how desperate they are and upset they are about the companies that come and take up their livelihood. And they're very upset because when they take up their livelihood, they do not give them any jobs, and that they are moved sometimes miles away from where they live onto someone else's land. And so it's very difficult to actually reintegrate into the other society. And I was talking about this aerial mining, the picture below. They displaced 10,000 farmers when they first came. And then at the time of taking this picture in 2014 or something, we were looking to displace 10,000 more to expand their 10,000 more farmers to expand their mine. And this is just one mining company. We have several, what do you call it? Several multinationals who go into oil drilling and different other businesses that they are into. Now, in lieu of the lands that they take, all those thousands of square miles, these are examples of the projects they give to the people in place of their livelihood, their cultural heritage. The top right one is a borehole. In the borehole, you have water, you pump the water through. Then you have a school in the middle. And the top right one is the house of the chief. And sometimes the people accuse the chiefs of conniving with the multinationals because they get things like this building in the middle of the forest where there's such fresh breeze and they put in these sliding windows. And so the people get upset with the chief. Actually, when I was conducting my research, I was supposed to interview the chief. And I barely got to the chief's interview because their people had chased them out of town, accusing them of conniving with the multinationals to the detriment of themselves. So the chiefs could not go into their own town. So the people were upset. And they would normally be like this woman, holding all sorts of implements, baying for the blood of the chief. The other picture on the right, which I didn't talk about, is some women farmers in the area where the cyanide poisoning is, Newmont. And they take the land and say, don't return to the land. But they are not ready at the time they take the land away from the people to actually start the business. So they take the people's food crops already planted and tell them not to go there. So they just are sitting there. The land is there. Newmont is not working. The people cannot get any food out of their land. And they are stopped from going there by security men. So you cannot go there when they say they have purchased it from government. So other CSR projects below is a market and the school bus and the cemetery. So these are examples of things they use to replace the livelihood and the cultural heritage of the people. And so when I saw this, I said to myself, wait a minute, there must be something that we can do to make CSR more applicable to the people. And so the story of CSR today, in some, and the pictures I showed was to show the inadequacy of CSR for host communities, the communities in which these companies operate, and then the consequence the communities are worse off, and it creates a dependence, and there's always potential for conflict, as we saw with the women in red. So the people think they've been cheated out of something, they feel they have not been adequately compensated, they also feel that their livelihood has been taken away from them. And indeed, sometimes with these examples of projects I showed you, they just build them and put them in place, but they don't have the backup to be able to maintain them. So they get used to a certain lifestyle, they get used to something, and they cannot maintain it because they're not equipped to do it. And then it breaks down, and then they are worse off than when they started. And so this is my story of CSR. This is why I decided to do this research. So there it is, my purpose, a model with a systemic approach that will make CSR an integral part of the multinational business operations for the benefit of the stakeholders. I had a previous research and identified 4 stakeholders. I did some research as part of my PhD studies in the practical and identified 4 key stakeholders in CSR. They are the government, the multinational, the NGA, and then of course the host community. And since the host communities cannot really do much about about the presence of the multinational corporations, because in Ghana, what is in the land beneath the surface belongs to government, not for the people who live on it. The government signs the contract, and then the people are sitting there one day, and then the multinationals come and say, hello, led by a few Ghanaians saying, hello, we are here today, we are coming to work on your land, what do you want? So this is the result of partnership that will take all these four stakeholders into consideration, because they can't drive them away. So the research question I used was, what are the core characteristics of the corporate social responsibility model based on a community-corporate partnership? I focus on community-corporate partnership because presently CSR is corporate social responsibility. And so everybody's mind and focus is on the corporate, forgetting that the local people or the host communities are the ones who are losing out. And so the focus should be on them. The focus should be on helping them to thrive, not being spoon-fed and spoiled by whoever is coming in with some dollars, which looks like plenty of money, but in effect does not keep them alive. So the sub-questions I address are what are the strengths of the CSR model based on a community-corporate partnership, the challenges of this CSR model based on a community-corporate partnership, and how a CSR model based on a community-corporate partnership can be applied in Ghana. And as I said, there are four major stakeholders in CSR in Ghana: the host communities, the NGOs, the government, and the multinational corporations. So these are the areas I researched into before I came up with my model. I wasn't looking at reinventing the wheel. I wanted to see where the gaps were. So the concept I studied was corporate social responsibility. I wanted to understand the concept in relation to its related components so that I could have a firm foundation to develop an alternative to CSR. So sorry, it's so small. I hope you can see better than I can. And so the themes, the related components that I discovered under CSR, I had the history, the definitions, the models that exist, and then the related terms. And then the stakeholder issues, because I identified four, was the key. And then the theory, the approach, the management of stakeholders, the way we engage, and then the dialogue. And then I looked at the key stakeholders in Ghana, as I said, the non-governmental organizations, multinational corporations. Government is also part of it, but I separated government because government has a big role to play, especially in our part of the world. Then I looked at partnerships, because partnerships in English language directly too, but if you were going into CSR language, one of the partnerships, we have different types of partnerships. So I looked at partnerships as they exist presently, where the model that I was hoping to develop at this stage was fit in. And my outcomes were that when I looked at the CSR tool, it really affirmed my choice of CSR as the fundamental concept for the model I was going to draw up. And then looking at Malaysia review also that looked at stakeholder issues and key stakeholders in Ghana, it helped me identify and design the relationships among the stakeholders. Because there were different types. I had found multinational corporations and the local companies, like multinational corporations and NGOs, and then some with governments. So different types of partnerships that presently exist. And then I looked at the role of government. The outcome there was that I had to find out what role government actually plays in CSR in Ghana, if at all. And then I looked at the partnerships that exist, and also found out that the best way in Ghana was to have a partnership among all these key stakeholders. If I was going to look at it in a systemic way, as I said, I was hoping my model would do. So, how I developed my corporate social responsibility model. also used research practicums, and then I created the CCPR, that is the Community Corporate Partnership Responsibility Model. That is my alternative to a corporate social responsibility. I wanted the community to be the focus. And looking at all the CSR that goes on in Ghana, the corporate bodies are the ones who are basically driving it. And the focus leads the community. So bringing the community first, also put some focus on the community to enable them develop the capacity of the community to partner them in doing social responsibility. So if you look at my model, I have the NGO at the top. They have the multinational, two circles, the left, my left, and I have government, and I have multinational corporations again, and I have the community there. This was what I came up with when I did my practicum, and before my practicum, I also did some small research with other organizations, and also did some reading. And so I found that this is how it works. It works in a very convoluted way, as I was saying. There were situations where the NGOs partnered the multinationals work through the NGOs, situations where the community partners the multinationals, and the multinationals will get third parties to do what they have to do. There are situations where sometimes the multinationals will partner the government, and then the government will go and work that way. So it's a very convoluted system. Yes, crazy. So you are trying to follow it. Okay, so I understand your confusion, but this is what I took to the community. This was my understanding after going through this approach, my experience of it, the heuristic approach, trying to see what I could do differently, critical theory, how I could build upon what was existing, and then my research practicum. All these came together to give me this picture. So after drawing this, to enable me get a model that was user-friendly and that would suit all the others, I decided to go back to the community to present this model to them. That is where I use I use the Delphi approach in gathering my data. So here I have my hermeneutical approach, an analytical process to enhance my understanding of the past, which I did with the individual, with the research, literature review. I also did this with my interviews with the stakeholders, and then I use it to interpret my own experience of it. I actually didn't mention in the beginning that I was actually drawn to it because my cousin lost her beautiful cocoa farm to a multinational corporation, and she didn't get a pesewa out of it. And the cocoa farm actually used for about 10 to 15 years. And so she didn't get anything out of it in the long run. And the critical theory also was instrumental because it gave room for critiquing and insight. So my design of the CCPR model, the alternative to the CSR, is to bring a change to the way CSR is practiced now. And these approaches, as I have described in summary, did not always manifest distinctly. They kind of they run into each other times when I was, doing it. And so after you doing that research with the phenomenological approach in the practicum, I also did the practicum. As I said, it helped me identify the key stakeholders and their CSR practices. And then I got a feedback on the model from colleagues at actually the ISSS conference in 2016. So also they gave me some feedback when I presented it. So that is how I arrived at this model using these steps, the phenomenological approaches, my research practicum, and then drawing this model. And after I had run the model, I got some feedback from colleagues at the IEEE conference. Then the phase 2, testing the CCPR model, the first model that I did, CCPR1. I took it now into the field to test. And I had, I set out to test 18 people from all the key stakeholders. So I had I think 3 multinationals, 3 government organizations, 3 NGOs, and then 6 local people. So those are the people I went to test the model on. I ended up testing 17 people because one didn't make it at the last minute. And so I actually went to the community and I tested this model, and it showed me that the model itself was a bit difficult to understand, as they said. I asked them to first explain to me what the understanding of the model was, which they did, and then after which I gave my explanation. Most times they told me that my explanation of the model did not match, and much as they liked the idea of the model needed some refinements to make it clearer as to what the issues I was talking about indicated. And so since I used this Delphi approach, and it was an iteration. So I built on each person's comment. So when I showed it to Kwesi, and Kwesi gave his comments, there were times I would give a blank sheet to them where they were able to do it, to give me their idea of it. And then I'll build it into my CCPR1. And then I went on that way. And when as I went to subsequent participants, I didn't give them the original model. I would show them sometimes, but we worked on the developed model. So we didn't go back reinventing the wheel. So I did the Delphi approach I used allows the researchers to do several iterations. And because of time, I was doing the iterations with each participant. So we had about 17 iterations to arrive at what we did. And before I showed the model to the participants, I had a first interview. I did 2 interviews. The first interview was to determine their knowledge and ideas on CSR without the influence of the model. So I would ask them. It was also to let me know if they were actually would be helpful to the research, even though my recruitment process was supposed to filter all that. I wanted to make sure that at the final point that we were actually going to be helpful to the process. So I did an initial interview, and then I did a second, after we did that one, which usually that's about 15 minutes, we did a second interview, which I gave them the model to look at, and then give their comments. And so that's how I approached it to arrive at, well, this was on my findings. There were, I talked about it earlier, that I think minority, about 6 or 7 of them said, much as it was, the model, as explained by me, was helpful. It did not indicate what I was talking about. And some of the weaknesses of the model were that there were too many arrows, too many writings. It didn't help those who were unlettered, and some actually put meaning to the arrows that were crooked. They were saying that because the government is so crooked, that's why the arrows related to government were crooked. Talking about the CCPR one, and too many words, and some thought that the positioning of some of these stakeholders also had meaning. So there are several meanings, but all in all, majority found that it was difficult to understand. I guess that was the essence of my presenting this model to them. So that's why I use the Delphi approach that allows for iteration and for the researcher to be able to add on. Usually people use surveys, but I use in-depth interviews because I didn't have much time on hand. So this is what I arrived at finally, the CCPR model 2. I actually did take um, a model with circles and colors. The community is represented by the green. I'm sorry, it's so small. The multinational by the yellow, government by red, and then the non-governmental organizations by blue. Sorry. So I took a blank sheet and then I showed it to the as I developed it. I wrote the colors because I got feedback I got was especially in the community, not everybody spoke English or could read, and not everybody could read. So I needed to find a way in which it would be helpful for them to identify what they were talking about. So that's why I came up with the color code. And then they also had their input, and I had a blank sheet with these stakeholders represented, and some of them actually illustrated how they thought it should run. So at the end of the day, I put all that together and came up with this model where it starts out. And another great feedback I got was the CCPR model one also was difficult to read because there was no place where they could start from. They had the source was unidentifiable. And so it helped me to try to number their process. So if you look at this model, there are numbers from governments to multinational corporations. So whatever input that stakeholder is given is close to the stakeholder. So for example, if you look at government, the red circle going to the multinational corporation, MNC corporate, you find out there's an arrow there, there's number 1. And I have regulations and orientation. That is what government is providing to the multinational corporation. And then at the other opposite end, closer to government, I have information. And that is what the corporate MNC is given. And what I also discovered was that with the multinational corporations, they have the corporate entity and they have the operation. And they both normally do different things. And since the focus also of the model, the community corporate partnership model, is on the community, that is why we have 4 green circles for the community. And there are different stages of development. And we're looking at getting social and economic empowerment for the people. And that's the only way they thrive. The NGO is also there that provides support, monitoring, and all that. So I'll get to see these 4 boxes up there. We have at the top, we have social empowerment and economic empowerment. We have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. Each one is pointing to one green circle. And the S1 is talking about community pre-engagement. The second stage of the social empowerment is community engagement. The third stage is community economic empowerment. And the fourth stage for the community is community ownership and management. So each stage, I've expanded it here because it's so small to see in it. But the pre-engagement stage, we have the social empowerment. The first stage is short-term, pre-engagement and initial empowerment processes, and going to the community, sensitizing them, getting them introduced to the process, and sometimes educating them. And that's the objective, to make them socially aware, to facilitate their ability to make informed personal choice. Sometimes they don't understand. Like I was telling you, the guys to go and say, we are coming for your land, we are giving you X amount of money. But they don't realize that the money is not equivalent to their livelihood and their heritage, and then the 15 years of crops to be getting from their land. So they just make choices where they are that are not informed. And the activities are community sensitization, community profiling, and then the multinational itself being culturally and socially oriented, the people's culture. At this stage, you have the government, the community, and the NGOs. This stage requires an investment of time, but the resources are not that much. But people are usually in a hurry, so they don't take the time to do that. I have a story to tell about investment of time. So the second stage is the social empowerment of the social empowerment. That's also short term, and you engage the people. the purpose to identify where you can collaborate and where you build their capacity. Usually they just come in there, come and take the land, and after they build them giving them some baskets or build some cemeteries or buildings, and they say, let's teach you something else, which is totally diametrically opposed to what they know. They know how to do. So that instead of doing that, identify the areas that you have to help them in before you get into it. And the activities include information sharing and developing and signing multinational MOU, that's a memorandum of understanding. I found that with all the research I did, I found only one document that had a signed document between the community and anybody at all. So the multinationals did what they wanted to do, and the community were at their mercy. Then the third stage is economic empowerment, which is for the medium to the long term, and it's actually the pivot of the community corporate partnership responsibility, because we want to empower the people. We want them to thrive. We're taking away their economic power. So this particular part is the pivot of the process, and it provides the communities the ability to be self-sustaining, and it can happen in different ways. So activities here include building capacity building for the multinational business activities. Because they are in the community, they're taking away their livelihood. They should be able to build the capacity to support, to give them some employment so that the locals also support the multinational. They are in there already, so we can't take them away. But what can they do to work hand in hand? That is building the locals to be able to also feed their industry. And then apart from that, we can't employ everybody. So what other capacity building programs can they carry out so that they can also live and use that as downstream or upstream activity? So this also involves the government, community, and the multinational corporation. And the fourth, final stage, economic empowerment, also medium to long term. And this is where we have the business ownership and management. Once you build their capacity, they should be able to manage their business or start their own businesses. And the purpose is to generate businesses for them and be able to manage the businesses themselves. So here, sometimes we have programs where the multinational or government or NGOs will help the community members establish their own businesses along the supply chain. And of course, we have some opportunities for employment aside establishing their own business. So that's the 4 stages of the CCPR model, as built upon from the comments and the iterations that I did in the community with the 17 people from the multinational, local government, the community, and the NGOs. They are the 4 key stakeholders. So my future avenues for research: further iterations to refine and culminate in a model that will not require further work. So with that Delphi method, I needed to do several iterations until no more iterations were required. I tried to counter that by doing the iteration with each person, giving a brief to each participant as to how we developed the stage at which I was discussing with them, and then built on it. So I built on it each time that I met a participant. So what I'm looking at is refining it so all the participants say, this is what we talked about. Okay, and the next avenue for research is fully understand the constraints and obstacles of the implementation of the model. This has been a theoretical one, theoretical in the sense that I heard them talk about it. We haven't really applied it to what actually is. And then methods to overcome identified barriers to the implementation. When we understand what the constraints are, and then we design the plans, implementation plans, and we build programs to address these challenges. Because remember, it's something that they're not used to doing. That's all the key stakeholders. The local communities are used to receiving. Same time you go, what is in it for them? What can I get from you? And the multinationals go in saying, we are bringing this to you. So they say, we are bringing this, and what can we get? So that is the kind of mentality they are living with. Government really doesn't have any policy. The NGOs who are a myriad, they're all doing different things. So if you want to transform this, they all have to go through certain certain processes to be able to go through the transformation. Now the update. So far, after my PhD, after taking a year off, well, not completely, I was still doing something. I focused on the second research avenue, understanding the constraints and obstacles. And I think it will underline practically everything I do from now on. And I had this project that I am still into that has taught me the issue of the mindset. So this is me actually dressed up to support my friend's son who was having a wedding in England, and she was a high school friend. And we have yellow as one of our colors. So we all decided to go yellow. But since I was in the forest, I just picked flowers and had my yellow funnel. So I'm standing up on a hill in the building and blowing my funnel to support the wedding process. So this is where I have a project I'm working on, trying to get the constraints of this empowerment that I've modeled that I've done. So this is the land where I was standing. The picture I showed you, this is the land. So you can see the layer of the land. Look at the sky, the beautiful sky, so peaceful. And this is another shot of it. You can see some buildings peeping through the top there. And those are plantain leaves. Those closer to the screen, they are plantain leaves or trees. So in all the beauty that we see here, this is a school. I don't know if you can have a closer look at it. This is a school comprising kindergarten 1, kindergarten 2, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. So this is a wooden structure. It's divided by wooden slats, roughly hewn planks. And this is the school I've been trying to work with. So these are the kids, kindergarten 1. And this is actually their classroom. And this is a school session. Kindergarten 2. I call them as a school session. I went there one Saturday. There were some chickens roosting in there and some goats roosting in there, because they are only 3-sided. There's no 4th side to it. Let me go back to the first screen. If you can see, so this is the entrance. You can see there's no door. It's just open. So that's how the goats and the sheep and the chickens get in there when the kids are not in. And when it rains, they have to go home because nothing stops the rain from coming to the classroom. So this is the first grade. Still in this wooden thing. Check out the floor. It's still earth. It's still dirt. That's what they're doing. That's where they are now. And this is the second grade. Now, how did I get to understand the second one, the constraints that we face when we are dealing with empowering the people? The update. Second bullet, more fully understand the constraints, the implementation of the model. Understanding the constraints, and I'm talking about the mindset. So this school, when I was doing my research, I went there to have a discussion with them. And I saw the school was failing. So I said, let's have a discussion on how we can make the school better. 3 years down the line, they told me they were still waiting for government to come and help them. So I was there late last year. And I met with the community again and again in meetings. So I asked the chairman of the committee. Each time I come here, I'm sure I must have been there like 10 times. I said, and I travel like 8 hours from where I live now to go there. So I asked him, so each time I come here, you tell me you're waiting for government. When did I first come? He said 3 years ago. And I said, you know what? 3 years ago, you could have done something with yourself. So I started to tell them the benefits of trying to do something themselves, a little contribution. And they actually have, if you look way behind it, they have, should I say mud houses or houses that have, they use earth. And that is the traditional way of building. And they last long if you repair them. So I said, instead of waiting for cement, which the multinational corporations build, can we try doing something? And they kept saying, we're waiting for government to come and do it. And I said, it's been 3 years now since I came. And you have been telling me that you were talking to government 2 years before, so that's 5 years. So I said, just start something for yourself and let's see what happens. So after 3 years, they finally got, I think, the message. And yesterday I had a chat. I was hoping to get the pictures. They haven't come in. I got them to start by just putting some cement on the floor for the kids. Because if you look at the left-hand corner, the little girl there, there's a mat on the floor. That's where the teacher sat, a black, green, yellow mat. That's where the teacher sat. And she had her baby who was ill with her on that mat there. And that's how she was teaching the kids. And they can't go to school anyway. So I said, why don't you first start by cementing the floor for the kids to have a place where they can even sit or spread the mat. And so that took 3 years. I'm happy to announce that I hear they have done that. And they are making some blocks to improve the school. And when they started, what I told them is to start for the government to come and help. When the government saw their effort, the government has come to help them. And so they are in the process. So yesterday I was told that, oh, people are saying what I came and said was right. But that cemented this lesson for me. The major constraint here is mindset. That is what I have to deal with all the key stakeholders. It's taking me 3 years to get the people to understand that, you can do it yourself. They have been getting the message all the time that we will come and do it for you. So now, how do they get them to socially and economically empower themselves? So that is the greatest lesson I have learned, and I'm still working on it. I'm hoping to show you pictures when it is done, and then I move to the next community to get that done. I'm using that also as a stepping stone to empower the women. I started talking to them about how they could use the food when they just farm by the season. And so they get bumper harvest and it goes rotten. So I've been trying to get them how to process. And they never listened. I was told a few weeks ago that now the lesson whatever I try to impart is thinking. Because now they don't have, it's plantain, they have lots of plantains, they can't even harvest and they go rotten on the farm. So they're telling me now they don't have even one single plantain. And they're remembering that I said they could dry the plantain and then mill it and eat. So the mindset is the biggest one. The school is my stepping stone to the community, and economic empowerment for the women is coming on stream. And at least their minds have been sensitized to the situation they are going through. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you heard me clearly.
Dolores, thank you so much for sharing that. And it must have been very gratifying to work in an area where you just really love the country, and it's a part of you. It's obvious from your presentation that you're very tied to your country and where you live. I just have a question, and then I'll open it up to everybody else. But as you did this process, this research process, did you have any surprising changes in the way you thought, or just aha moments, and also the people you were working with? Like, did they change how they were thinking?
What went down home to me was the fact that because most people in Ghana are not lettered, they are not formally educated. And so I was thinking they would not understand the process. That was back of my mind. And I thought I had to translate it in different ways. But I found out that I was surprised they actually were able to, once I indicated to them where each stakeholder was and what they stood for, they understood it for me. And then also what pleasantly that surprised me, what pleased me was that I got a lot of creative ideas from those who couldn't read or write English. I got a lot of creative ideas from them. And another thing that I was told a few times was that the empowerment that I was trying to tell them was not really a new concept. They actually thought about it. It was something they were doing already, but I had drawn their attention to it. And it's something that they felt that they could do. And so those are the things that came up. Those were the things that were, those things that pleased me, that at least I wasn't talking about them, but I could identify with them and they could work with what I was talking about.
Okay. Anybody else have a question for Dolores? Okay, I know that somebody does, and you're just waiting, because this is a very inquisitive group.
Hi, Dolores Quasi here. Thanks for the presentation. It's a good reminder. I think I'd seen some of this you presented before somewhere. I'm not sure where. Now, yeah. I sent you a message regarding the model for just ease of conceptualizing it.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'll leave you with those notes and then happy to discuss just in terms of representation of what you had. I think it's just a rearranging makes it much easier to understand if the community is at the center of all of this.
Yeah.
Right? And then you've got the circles and you have separate, I think one you separate between the local government and national government, and then you have the NGO and then the multinational corporations, and each are feeding into the community, and it's a bi-directional arrows for each. But to me, that would be a much simpler way to kind of grasp the construct. What I loved about what your presentation was you hit on some things that we're dealing with here in North America around how we bring around change. So, and what is interesting about it is no matter how sophisticated or advanced we may think we are in our knowledge and understanding and with our technology, the crucial element in all of this stuff is the human being. And the human being's evolution and adaptation abilities are limited by its abilities to really truly understand and embrace how it as an entity changes, one internally, but also relative to the community and stakeholders with whom they interact. So this has been really reinforcing of the notion of how difficult changes, but also how, quite frankly, universal the challenges we all face around moving this construct called a human behavior.
Yes. Thank you, Quasi. I would love to have that chat because I still have to move on further iteration, so it would be great to have the chat. Thank you.
Dolores, could you also go back to the other diagram? No, that one right there. Okay. I just wanted to grab a copy of it. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Keane, when I saw that diagram, I thought of you.
Yes.
That diagram made me think of you.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, that was nice.
So Dolores,
yeah.
What is the basis for the multinational corporation wanting to participate? Why should they want to participate?
Why should they participate? Because they are having people agitating against the treatment of the local community. They think they are being unfair to the local community. And I guess also they want to be known as corporations that have good social responsibility practices. And they are not just out to plunder and take what doesn't belong to them. So people are becoming more aware in Ghana about their rights.
So the population is beginning to protest against what the multinationals are doing?
Yes.
Okay. Because, I mean, the multinationals are not there for Ghana. I mean, they're in the business of extraction for their own ends.
Right.
Yes. But they make a show of trying to, saying that they're putting something back into the community. So they are saying, well, you want to put something in there, then do something that we can benefit from, not just a show of it. Like those ones I showed you. You don't take a whole river or a lake and put in a borehole. You know, you must be showing that you mean that. And we understand perfectly well that they're not there for Ghana, they're there for themselves. And so we can't take them out of the picture. If they're doing anything, it has to be systemic. They also have to benefit. They have to reach they have to, what do you call it? Not reach their profits, but cover their costs. And of course, the reason why they came profit, but do it in a way that the people also benefit from it. They don't lose out. If there was something that we can thrive on.
Gene, are you getting at essentially, you know, the basic question of all change, and that is one of the questions that what's in it for me?
The basic approach is the multinational comes in, bribes the government, and screws the people. Okay,
right.
I mean that's a typical approach until the people finally get wise and fix the government so it's not corrupt. And then they have to negotiate, the multinational has to negotiate with the government to actually provide some benefits to the community for the disruption that it's causing.
That's what's happening now. They're getting wiser to it. And now they just don't want any bathrooms or toilets, but they want something more.
Okay, good.
I think you touched on that just slightly, Dolores and Jean. You raised a good point, because if you look at what's happening in Nigeria and you look what's going on in Brazil and some other countries, there's violence being perpetrated, one against the personnel of the multinational corporations, but also the government officials, where they're seeing the deforestation or the denuding of the land and the lack of benefits, you know, driving back to the communities, or more importantly, the lack of consultation. So here in Canada, through our courts, we've basically, the First Nations have stopped the pipelines from going forward without meaningful consultation. So it gets to the point you're talking about, what's in it for me? And that applies to, I think, all the stakeholders, and having that question addressed up front before any work goes on. Otherwise, you're just inviting conflict.
I've been applauding Canada for a long time.
When I was talking about conflict, when I was doing the research and interviewing, one of the NGOs was pretty upset with me that we didn't see the NGOs featuring much. It was like I was taking their jobs from them. And I said, whoa, this is only a research. I'm asking your opinion. I'm not telling you that's what we're supposed to be doing. So even with this research, conflict, everybody is looking for a piece of the pie. There's the systemic approach. How do you all get a piece of the pie? It don't be what you want, but at least you get something.
Dolores, this is Gary. If I could.
Oh yeah, Gary. Hi.
Hi, Dolores. I'm really glad to see you presenting this information again. So for those of you who don't know, I was on Dolores's committee when she was doing the research, so I can maybe add just a couple of words. By the time Dolores was doing the research, there's a lot of long-standing protocols, traditions, whatever, already about multinational corporations being in developing countries. So part of the tension is that there's in some cases there's actually a legal requirement that they do something like this kind of work. In other cases, it's more of a tacit understanding, but there's lots and lots of practice protocols that say they will do this kind of work. A lot of the tension at the point that Dolores was starting her study was they would come in with their own ideas of what should be done. And if they were a large multinational, they kind of did the same thing everywhere. So, you know, they would focus on schools, or they would focus on, you know, building water supply, or they would do whatever they did, whether the community needed it or not. It was kind of like they had a template and that's where they worked from. And, you know, if you got something, this is what you got. So a lot of the tension with the communities was them starting to understand the ability to identify their own needs, and then how to transmit that back, and then how to begin to negotiate about that. And I'm curious, Dolores, one of the pieces that we had talked about, but that I don't still see in the model, is the role of the chief. And I didn't know if that came up even in your latest work with his school, because it's like that's another, it's not a governmental position, but it's an absolutely important position at the level of the community about what gets identified and whether anything gets done, if I remember right.
All right, thank you. You're right. You remember very right. I'll start from the community. My work with the school in the community. I couldn't do it without the chief. And so all the meetings were with the chief. I always had to go and see the chief. And he would promise one thing. And I go back 3 months later and nothing had happened. But I just couldn't move without the chief. So when I got the chief's agreement to do it, well, still nothing moved. Then the chief died. But then there was somebody else who was acting in his place. So that hierarchical system is still there. You can't go around the chief. But I didn't mention them, I didn't identify them as chief because they are part of the community and there are processes that one has to go through. So engaging the community will be part of the first stage of the model. Because when you are going to engage the community, you have to do the things that the community demands. And as regards the CSR team, since I started, not much has changed. There is this debate about government doesn't have any CSR rules. So people come in, so basically the multinationals, and they go there and they see the people and they kind of agree what they want to do. And the argument is, some people think that if they actually take what the multinationals should come and do, maybe less than what they can do. And so they should leave it at that. And some people are saying, no, at least set a minimum so that everybody knows that you have to do at least this one. And government is now moving on to trying. They put a bill before Parliament now on the need to try to get a CSR legal document for Ghana. But as much as I'm concerned, my trip back to this area, it hasn't really changed much as to what the people do. And so the multinationals are still carrying on the way they're carrying on because sometimes they think that they are doing them a favor. So until the legal document comes out, they still do what they want to do. And some of the communities are so far away that the government themselves don't even go there. What I found with government when I was doing my research, the local government organizations actually depended on the multinationals to run some of their programs. So even if they have any guidelines for them, they'll probably shove it because they are benefiting from the multinationals. But hopefully, I think when but it hasn't changed. I guess when the documents, the bill is tabled for Parliament and approved, we may have something different. But we still cannot do without the chief. You have to get through a chief before you get to it. I hope that addresses it, Gary.
Yes, that's good. Thank you, Doris.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
Hey, Doris, and Gary raised a good point there.
Yes.
When you talk about government, the chief is actually the first layer. I mean, if it's like South Africa, where basically you'd go to the chief to get that blessing for the local within the community, then you go to your local broader government, and then you go to your either state, provincial, and then national. So there's actually 4 levels of government involved in that. And I don't know how sophisticated or how structured that might be, but that is actually the formal and informal way that I'm familiar with, at least in South Africa, when things got done. So the chief was part of that. You have to go through him because you've got the tribal lands and there's a recognition and acknowledgement of that. So I don't know if that, in the diagram, when you talk about governments, you know, we talk about identifying what are the different circles feeding to the community.
Yes.
That would be one layer of quasi-government, or if you will, governance, for lack of a better word.
Okay. Yeah, it's similar to what you're saying. You have to go through the chief. You have to get into the community. You have to go through the chief. But in Ghana, I think legally, government supersedes every structure. But in practice, the chiefs are the ones who are the overlords of their own land. So I guess it depends on the power of the chief as well. Some chiefs are so powerful, they don't get into their land without, by going through government. You need to go through them first. So it depends on which area you are going to. But once you need to go and touch the land or the water body, the chief has to be involved in it. You can't see his people without seeing the chief. So sometimes you have the government office where the chief resides. So some will go to the government office, and the government office will see them to the chief. If that's not the case, you go to the chief's palace first. And then if you have to do the legal thing, of course, first you have to, and if the government acknowledges it, if you have to take some land or some water building in a community, you have to get the signatures of the chiefs and the people who own that before government will process the documents for you. So it's very similar to South Africa.
Great. Thank you, Dolores.
Okay.
Any other questions out there? Just remember to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dolores. I enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, what I didn't add was talking about mindset. I've been trying to work with the Chamber of Mines, their chief executive. I had a meeting with him, and we talked about the model that the second model, this one, and he was quite happy with it. And he thought the business, the fourth stage, whether comes to the second stage or something like that. We had a chat, and they are trying to reorganize the way that the mines work in the community. We had a chat, and we're supposed to follow up on how I could feed into whatever they're doing in terms of engaging with the community. But we haven't been able to sort that one out yet. But he expressed interest while using this model in the mine, although a bit modified in the mining community.
Great. Perfect. Wonderful work. Good work. Good job, Dolores. Okay, I guess we'll end it there. We have been recording, so there is a recording. If you want to get a copy, let us know. And Dolores, I'm assuming it's okay to release your slides as a PowerPoint, maybe?
Yes.
Dolores?
Yes.
I just posted a link in the chat room.
Okay.
There are several videos on YouTube by Chip and Dan Heath that you might find useful.
And I will have a copy of the chat room.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you, Jean.
Thanks. Yep. Good
Thank
reminder.
you.
Bye. See everybody.
Bye, all.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dolores.
Oh,
And
yes.
connect anytime, Dolores. Connect anytime, okay?
Okay, we'll do.
Okay.
We'll do.
All right.
Thank you all so much. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to share. Now
Yeah.
I feel energized and galvanized to go back to it.
Good.
It's something more, yes.
That's one of the goals of this webinar. This
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Dolores. We'll be in
All
touch.
right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.